80 voting in favor and 42 against the passage of SCR 1604, the same having received a constitutional majority. The bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote.
Just like that, we've got state number 20. Congratulations to Kansas. We just passed in Kansas by a vote of 80 to 42. As I mentioned earlier, we're headed into a South Dakota Senate committee hearing tomorrow morning. So it's going to be really exciting to share with our South Dakota team. Some of them are probably watching this right now.
I'm just so excited that we're at state number 20. We went 3 years, I believe, that we went without picking up a state. So now we're at 20 and we get to press on to 34. We're not going to stop until we get there. We have to save this country.
Rita, you've been working diligently on South Dakota. I think that's the next place we got to pay attention. I just think there's a lot of momentum. There's a lot of stuff in the air. I think we're going to see a whole bunch of states step up and pass this year. Nothing really big happens without long-term effort. You've got to put in the time. You've got to put in the blood, sweat, and tears. Our grassroots have been doing that for 13 years.
Andrew, I want to say to the people watching, I hope that you're inspired by what you've just seen. And if you've been sitting on the sidelines and you're a supporter of Convention of States maybe, but you haven't really plugged in with your team, you haven't really gotten involved and started taking action, I would just say let today be the day. We're going to leave you with the victory reel, brand new victory reel for Kansas, which today, Thursday, January 22nd, 2026, officially became state number 20.
Our federal government is broken. I think it's silly to believe that the professional politicians who got us into this mess will somehow magically get us out of it.
Very concerned about the future, their future.
We see where the way the country's going right now politically. It scares us all.
Kansans rallying outside the state capitol calling for change.
We find the government in Washington has in fact become an enemy of our liberty.
What is the federal government going to do next? And how do we stop it?
The framers of our Constitution provided a way for us to check the powers of the federal government,
to break the glass and put the fire out.
And so Article 5 provides us the only relief that we have.
I think that they put it in there with good reason, that they could see a day when the federal government showed no regard for the people.
The only way we're ever going to have term limits is through this process.
And I wonder why we haven't already done this.
What Kansas needs to do is pass a resolution through their House and Senate.
That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter.
Now is the time to act, and to act boldly.
Senators in favor said the convention is needed to address term limits in Washington and the federal debt.
It's exciting that we would be so revolutionary.
Proposed amendments without the consent of Congress, the President, or the Supreme Court.
It's a unique process in that we don't have to have permission from anyone but ourselves.
And it just blew my mind. I didn't know about this. Is this real?
People of this country are going to realize the availability of this powerful tool our wise and founding fathers gave us, and an Article 5 convention will be called.
We're involved in the Convention of States movement in the state of Kansas to appeal for Kansas's participation in the Convention of States.
It takes people to be involved, and this is the way we can do it together as a team. And the more we grow, the more stronger and more powerful we will become.
To stand for freedom, to stand for their rights, because it's not passed down in the bloodstream. It needs to be fought for, and now is the time.
Convention of States is not just about the convention. It's about a grassroots army of people that are wanting to invigorate our country.
So I ask you to please consider Convention of States application and pass it.
As Americans can have faith in their government again.
Provide future generations the same opportunities of liberty, prosperity our forefathers gave us.
I would submit to you that the greater risk is waiting and doing nothing now.
Fear says, what if? Faith says, even if. We must pass this resolution and live by faith.
A convention of states is going to happen.
To limit the size, scope, and jurisdiction of the federal government, term limits on federal officials, and fiscal restraints on the federal government.
done with January 2026, and state number 20 is in the books. Let's go!
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
I don't want you to ride. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the streets. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad.
Is the whole world gone crazy? Am I the only one around here who gives a shit about the rule?
You have the luxury of not knowing what I know.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
$80 voting in favor and 42 against the passage of SCR 1604, the same having received a constitutional majority. The bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote.
Just like that, we've got state number 20. Congratulations to Kansas. We just passed in Kansas by a vote of 80 to 42. As I mentioned earlier, we're headed into a South Dakota Senate committee hearing tomorrow morning. So it's going to be really exciting to share with our South Dakota team. Some of them are probably watching this right now.
I'm just so excited that we're at state number 20. We went 3 years, I believe, that we went without picking up a state. So now we're at 20 and we get to press on to 34. We're not going to stop until we get there. We have to save this country.
Rita, you've been working diligently on South Dakota. I think that's the next place we got to pay attention. I just think there's a lot of momentum. There's a lot of stuff in the air. I think we're going to see a whole bunch of states step up and pass this year. Nothing really big happens without long-term effort. You've got to put in the time. You've got to put in the blood, sweat, and tears. Our grassroots have been doing that for 13 years.
Andrew, I want to say to the people watching, I hope that you're inspired by what you've just seen. And if you've been sitting on the sidelines and you're a supporter of Convention of States maybe, but you haven't really plugged in with your team, you haven't really gotten involved and started taking action, I would just say let today be the day. We're going to leave you with the victory reel, brand new victory reel for Kansas, which today, Thursday, January 22nd, 2026, officially became state number 20.
Our federal government is broken. I think it's silly to believe that the professional politicians who got us into this mess will somehow magically get us out of it.
Very concerned about the future, their future.
We see where the way the country's going right now politically. It scares us all.
Kansans rallying outside the state capitol, calling for change.
We find the government in Washington has, in fact, become an enemy of our liberty.
What is the federal government going to do next? And how do we stop it?
The framers of our Constitution provided a way for us to check the powers of the federal government.
To break the glass and put the fire out.
And so Article 5 provides us the only relief that we have.
I think that they put it in there with good reason, that they could see a day when the federal government showed no regard for the people.
The only way we're ever going to have term limits is through this process.
And I wonder why we haven't already done this.
What Kansas needs to do is pass a resolution through their House and Senate.
That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is a right of the people to alter.
Now is the time to act and to act boldly.
Senators in favor said the convention is needed to address term limits in Washington and the federal debt.
It's exciting that we would be so revolutionary.
Propose amendments without the consent of Congress, the President, or the Supreme Court.
It's a unique process in that we don't have to have permission from anyone but ourselves.
And it just blew my mind. I didn't know about this. Is this real?
People of this country are going to realize the availability of this powerful tool our wise and founding fathers gave us, and an Article 5 convention will be called.
We're involved in the Convention of States movement in the state of Kansas to appeal for Kansas's participation in a Convention of States.
It takes people to be involved, and this is the way we can do it together as a team. And the more we grow, the more stronger and more powerful we will become.
To stand for freedom, to stand for their rights, because it's not passed down in the bloodstream. It needs to be fought for, and now is the time.
Convention of States is not just about the convention. It's about a grassroots army of people that are wanting to invigorate our country.
So I ask you to please consider Convention of States application and pass it.
As Americans can have faith in their government again.
Provide future generations the same opportunities of liberty, prosperity our forefathers gave us.
I would submit to you that the greater risk is waiting and doing nothing now.
Fear says, what if? Faith says, even if. We must pass this resolution and live by faith.
A convention of states is going to happen.
To limit the size, scope, and jurisdiction of the federal government, term limits on federal officials, and fiscal restraints on the federal government.
We're not even done with January 2026, and state number 20 is in the books. Let's go!
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
I don't want you to ride. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the streets. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad.
Has the whole world gone crazy? Am I the only one around here who gives a shit about the rules?
You have the luxury of not knowing what I know.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
Excuse the technical difficulties there, folks. But yes, here we are. It's been about a year or so, maybe a little less, that I have been that I've gone live. I've been putting out those shorts with George Mason. I hope you've been enjoying those. This particular stream is going out to X and Facebook, so the focus is there. But I am fired up right now because Kansas is number 20 in this Convention of States run, in the current calling for a Convention of States for proposing amendments to the U.S. Constitution on the topics of term limits, fiscal restraints, and government overreach. And I, for one, am excited as hell. I was like, I have to take down the whole page if I don't come out and go live today. And I realize the audience may not be huge because people don't see it coming. But I see Chris Keener's here. Mississippi's resolution does not include term limits. In fact, they banned their delegates from even being able to discuss it. Yes, Mississippi was an issue. They did have term limits missing. However, that's not one of the 20 right now. So we're good to go as far as actually, I think they addressed that. I don't know. That's a good question. I remember when I first got on board with Convention of States, which was probably 4 years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago. Those were my questions. Mississippi was a question that jumped out at me, but I remember it being resolved. But that's a good point, Chris. And now you've given me something. It's very rare someone hits me with something that I can't answer immediately, but that was one. So if I have other Convention of States folks on, let me know. Let me know if you have an answer to Mississippi. I'm not sure if they're one of the 20 or not. I think they are not. but we'll see. We'll see. But either way, the term limits is going to be an easy. I realize that they, number one, they're not necessary. There's 50 states. We need 34, but we'll get Mississippi on board. Right now, I'm celebrating Kansas. So, the reality is Kansas, for those that don't know, is a long run, years in the making. They had an unconstitutional clause in their state constitution mandating only for a convention of states that they needed a supermajority, and that we challenged that. Well, but grassroots and convention of states action, among others, had challenged that and won, and they almost got the supermajority anyway. I think they were like 2 votes short or 1 vote short of a supermajority anyway, but the fact of the matter is they didn't need one. No other state needs one. And you can't just set that up for a federal process that is different than everyone else. So it worked out beautifully in our favor. So I am happy to announce this. I'm just stoked. I mean, I got, a few of my folks, Mike Arnold in particular, he's a regional director over in the Northeast, and he went ahead and gave me the heads up that this was going down today. I saw yesterday they had final on it, and today was the vote. I didn't know what time it was coming on. I was actually on a conference call when it started, but I got on as soon as I could, and then saw that the resolution passed. So we now have 20, and it's only January, so that's outstanding. And look. And I heard Mark Meckler speaking, after the vote, and he had said that, and I agree with him. Rita Peters saying the same thing, that this is a momentum, right? You start the year off, boom, you got number 20, right? Tomorrow morning, I believe it's South Dakota that they're going into a Senate committee hearing with. South Dakota has been more of an issue in the House, but the Senate hearing starts tomorrow, and now the grassroots get to go in there and throw out there that, hey, by the way, Kansas just passed this resolution yesterday. We're now at 20. How far down the list do you want to be in states that jumped on board, right? For all the fear mongering, right? For those, and for anyone who doesn't understand, if you're just catching this live and you don't understand what the Convention of States is, what it's all about, so. I'll just do a quick run through just for those folks. Article 5, the second clause of Article 5 in the U.S. Constitution. If you're not familiar with Article 5, it lays out how amendments can be made to the Constitution. And the second clause basically eliminates the federal government. They have a minor role, but it's not significant in the way, like, they can't stop it, right? And that's the biggest thing. So. And what happens is the states, instead of 2/3 of the House and Senate and Congress writing up some proposals and proposing them to the states to ratify, the states will create a convention, send delegates that each state selects. The process for each state selecting them and how many they send, that's all up to the individual states. Again, remember, the states are sovereign, right? So if you're looking at Article 5 and saying, but it doesn't clearly outline this, it doesn't clearly outline that, again, it's acknowledging that the states are sovereign. The Constitution has no role in deciding how the states decide to set this, pick their delegates, how many delegates they send, etc. But they send their delegates or commissioners off to the convention. Now, first they pass these resolutions. So you need 2/3 of the states, and that in our case that's 34 states, right? It might bump to 35 if we get Greenland. Just kidding. But it's 34 states right now. So if 34 states pass resolutions or petitions to call for a convention on these specific on whatever topics they want, they go ahead and pass resolutions with the same topics. Boom, Congress shall, in the Constitution, Congress shall call the convention upon the receipt of those petitions. So Congress calls a convention and the rest is back up to the states again. It's more of a formality, an official undertaking, not, it's not Congress might do it, right? They have to. And once they do, Congress will go ahead and call that. And then, hold on a second here. Okay. So Congress will go ahead and call it. The convention will be held. They'll pick the time, the place, etc. Delegates all go, and they start the debate. Now, in this case, in this particular calling of a convention of states, it's term limits. These are the topics: term limits, government overreach, and fiscal restraints. So I've been throwing out ideas over those topics of things that can happen. Obviously, the delegates that go to a convention will look for things that they can actually get ratified, right? But I think there are some pretty amazing things that could get ratified. One of which, in my opinion, is a single subject amendment. This would eliminate all pork from federal bills. It would eliminate it. If they want to put onto a bill that they're going to set, $700,000 or whatever it was to study the sex habits of Japanese quail while on cocaine. That's a real thing, by the way. They have to create a bill just for that. And this gives the accountability that's necessary. No one's signing their name to that bill, but they will sign their name to a veterans bill that has that at the bottom of it because, well, they can just talk about the veterans bill and move on. So that's one example. Repealing the 16th Amendment, removing income tax, right, which was unconstitutional until they made an amendment for it, right? So getting back to the basics, the income tax is a big topic of conversation right now. Anyway, these are all things that could be done in this current convention, right? So it's not something you just throw out any pipe dream. It's got to be on those three topics, but those three topics cover a lot. And frankly, it's not even about what gets ratified, to be honest with you. It's about the fact that the convention gets called, the process goes underway and completes. Because once that's done, all this gibberish from the Soros organizations, from Common Cause to the League of National Women Voters, even John Birch Society is in line with those guys. Like all this nonsense that they keep showing up at these state legislatures and spewing will be over. All the fear mongering will be done. We'll have done it. It will now be a power that the people have in our toolbox to be able to utilize at will. And frankly, it will change the scope. It will change the relationship between the federal government and the people forever. Because now you don't have to keep calling conventions all the time. All you have to do is make it clear that if they don't get their crap straight, you will call one. And without the fear there, without these fear mongers running around telling everybody, don't use your power, don't use your constitutional power, it's so scary, don't do it. Without those people around, the threat will be real. And we can then turn around and say, hey, you know what? You don't want, we have states out there straggling around that don't want to get voter ID, or the federal government will not pass a law for voter ID. We can put in an amendment. Now, something like that would be difficult because it only takes 13 states to deny the ratification, and we're close to that number now with these leftist states, so that are insisting that ID is not necessary and that secure elections are not relevant. Right. But it's something that can get done, is the bottom line. And the beauty of it all is that it brings back the way it reminds people, I should say, of the way the nation was supposed to be run. We get so enamored right now with Donald Trump this and Donald Trump. What about Obama? Obama did this. And, we need a president that's going to do this. We need a president that's going to do that. It's like, really, what you need are state legislatures that are going to do the things that you need. Because in reality, in this republic, the power really sits with them, as is evidenced by their ability to amend the Constitution almost unilaterally as a group, right? So there's no, and this was put in specifically for the purpose of doing things that require amendments that the federal government will never do, like term limits, right? You'll never see term limits legislation come out, ever. You just won't see it, ever. I don't care, Cruz, whoever else, you will never see term limits legislation come out. It just won't happen. And even, it's not even just about legislation that they won't pass. It's because the real damage to this country wasn't done by the executive or the Congress. It was done by bad courts and horrific rulings that have stretched the Constitution to places it was never intended to go. And it's allowed things that never should have been allowed. The Commerce Clause is a perfect example. They've redefined what it means to go across state lines to the point where every single bit of commerce in the country is now legally regulated by the federal government. And that's just something that's not, they're only supposed to be regulating things that cross states in a sense of two states dealing with each other, not a truck that's picking up, goods in Idaho and bringing them to Nebraska. That doesn't put that truck under the federal guidelines for regulation. And so those types of bad decisions over the course of a century, really, all right, have put us mainly in it's like death by 1,000 cuts. Some of the decisions are small but impactful. Some were huge, right? And it's just undoing those decisions. There is no mechanism for that outside of the federal government doing something. And if what you're asking, if the bad decision is in the federal government's favor, then they'll never do anything. And so the founders, George Mason in particular, put it on us, or gave it to us, that we now have an avenue. We have an avenue, even when the federal government and the courts, all three branches, when they're all friggin' in cahoots, there's still a way to impose restrictions. And this is a power that no country in history, no nation in history has ever had, ever. And it's, in my opinion, it's the real reason why, one of the reasons why you can't call us an empire. You just can't. You can look at the money and the power and be like, oh, of course you're an empire. Look how much money and power you have. Yeah, but empires, if we were an empire, we would have taken over the world in World War II, but we didn't, right? If when you look at these empires that fell, they didn't have a mechanism like this. When their governments went out of control, they just went out of control. There was no recourse for the people. There was nothing for the people in those fallen empires to do, to right the ship, to bring it back to a good place. Here, however, this was thought of. This was thought out. The founders understood that this would be a problem, that it would be an issue at some point, and when that would happen, it was their guess was as good as anyone's, but they knew it would happen. They knew eventually, at least the Anti-Federalists did, and the rational of them, being George Mason, and the rationalist of the Federalists was, Madison, etc. These folks understood. It was unanimous when Mason brought this up, that this needed to be added into Article 5. It was unanimous. And it was only like 2 days before the Constitution was ratified. Well, not ratified, but before it was completed and sent for ratification. So these are things, this was put into the Constitution for a reason. And right now, 20 states are in alignment so far, in agreement. We need 34 total, and they come in bunches, right? We go a couple or few years with, no movement, usually over technicalities. Like this Kansas thing was strictly a technicality over the last few years. Now that technicality has been removed, and boom, all of a sudden we got the majority vote. And so all of the hesitancy on the part of the states that haven't come aboard yet are all buying into the fear. They're all buying into, they're being told all kinds of outlandish nonsense, like the Bill of Rights can be removed, they can do away with the Second Amendment, they can rewrite the ratification. It's all nonsense. It's all nonsense. The only difference between the second clause and the first clause in Article 5 is who proposes, not who ratifies, and not how hard it is to be ratified. It will require, you will have to have, of the 99 state legislatures branches or chambers that are out there in this country, right? You say, why aren't there 100, House and Senate for 50 states? Because Nebraska, I believe it is, only has one chamber. But there are 99 chambers, and only 13 of those chambers can shut the whole thing down. So nothing is getting through that doesn't, it's going to be hard enough to just get the good stuff through. Forget going crazy. I think there are like 26 states with open carry laws. Like, really? You think you won't find 13 of them to shut down anything that comes out of a change to the Bill of Rights? Of course not. It's ridiculous. It's nonsense talk, and it's time that we take this seriously. It's time that everybody starts to understand. You may not have heard of this process before. Many people have not. Okay, but I could tell you this: when it gets to 26, 27, you're going to hear a lot about it. It's going to be all you hear. You're going to hear people running to the microphones. You're going to hear back-to-back George Soros and George Soros' son now, on the news, and then some member of JBS on the right side news, both yapping the exact same argument. Okay, it's gonna be everywhere. You're gonna see it in well, they don't have papers anymore. You're gonna see it a lot online. You're gonna see it in your feed. You're gonna see it everywhere, and the narratives are gonna be all over the place. And it's important to educate yourself on it now before people try and educate you on it later who do not have good intentions. But like right now, I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to get negative because this is such a beautiful day. We're here in late January, first month of the year, and bang, we got state number 20, right? I think it was 3.5 years ago, we got 4 states in 1 year. Bang, 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 bang. They were just popping off like crazy. And then we had a drought, and now we got our first one this year. And there's no reason why we can't get another 3 or 4 this year. There's no reason. They've been at this, folks. The grassroots have been at this for 13 years. Okay? It's not about Obama or Trump or this or that. These are necessary fixes to fundamental structural damage that has been done to our federal government or has occurred in our federal government. I don't know if it's been done to it. It's more, I think a more accurate term would be they did it to themselves. But as did we, by being complacent for so many years and getting caught up in this, left and right and blah blah blah. Like there are really 2 teams. Like those two wings aren't on the same bird, right? And there's still plenty of people out there who believe that. They believe like the reality is there are Marxists and there are people who love America. That's the bottom line. Whenever you hear somebody getting all crazy, right? You hear the word fascist or Nazi, you know you're dealing with a Marxist. Even if sometimes they don't even know that they're spewing Marxist garbage. But like when you hear those words, you know you're dealing with a Marxist, right? Those are the only 2 teams. There are no Republicans and Democrats. It's just that whole thing is an illusion. And the reality of the matter is these topics here, all right? I mean, they did polls not long ago where when you looked at the polls, I think it was like 54% of Democrat voters were in favor of these topics as far as amendments. And again, the topics are term limits, fiscal restraints, and government overreach. These are things we can all agree on. These are things we can all agree on. And so long as, we get through this process and are able to execute this, this is something that when it's done, is going to be talked about in textbooks and taught in schools 250 years from now, because it's going to create people don't think so because they don't have their head wrapped around it, or they think that it ain't going to happen. But yet here we go. We keep adding. Eventually we're going to get to 34. Eventually we're going to get there. And once that happens, that's it. It's game on, right? The game begins then. It doesn't end then. The game begins then. Then each of us need to be involved in our states and our state legislatures to make sure they're picking the best delegates to represent us, right? Then the delegates get in there. I'm sure this thing's going to be televised. Delegates get in there. We need to be engaged. We need to listen to the language that they're talking about. We need to listen, to the arguments that are being had, to the discussions that are going on. We need to be involved in all of that, and we need to make it clear, right, to our state legislators that, you know what, if we don't like something, you let them know, hey, if this goes this way, you're done. If it goes this way, you're done. And that's how we need to look at everything, right? And that's only another phase, because then then we see what comes out of it, right? Then we read that stuff and we're like, all right, you know what? We need to I don't like this amendment, right? Like, I get where you're going with it, but you left out some stuff that should be in there. There's some issues here, etc. And this kind of stuff, and then you make it known. And here's the thing, guys, like I was saying earlier, the country was designed. It was designed to be run through the state legislatures. It wasn't designed for you to bring your grievances to the president. That's not how we operate. All right. It's designed so that you bring your grievances to your local legislature. And whoever your representative is, these individuals can represent anywhere from 10,000 to 80,000 or 100,000. Some rare case like San Francisco, it might be like 700,000. That's still peanuts in the scope of a state, or like these people are managing much more local populations. And what does that mean? Two things. One, it's harder to fix an election in a small election like that, because if everybody turns out in strength, it's impossible to fix an election like that. Number two, if you do have a grievance with someone, like let's say they're opposing convention of states and you really want to see it happen, okay, it only takes a few thousand people to remove that person. A few thousand highly motivated people who are guaranteed to show up at the polls, that person will sign on. Okay, I'm telling you, they will. 100 people show up at a state house legislature, and they understand the game the way restaurants understand it. If one customer has a bad experience, there's probably 10 others that had it and didn't say anything. Right, and 100 people took time off from work to come down here and talk to me. That's impactful at the local level. Okay, show up at the White House with 100 people. They've got enough jail cells for 100 people. Right? Like you show up at your state legislature with 100 people, and it's a serious game getting played now. Now you're looking at something. You're looking at it from the standpoint of, all right, 100 people here. That means there are thousands that are thinking this way, and thousands are enough to remove me from office. And if you think state legislatures are the same thing as federal politicians, they're not. They're not. There are very few. I can't say none. There are very few lifetime state legislatures. Most of these people are in this, and most of the country are in this for the service. All right. I think New Hampshire hasn't given the state legislators a raise since the 1700s. These people are out there. Even the do-to-dos, even the ones that like you disagree with on everything, like they really believe in what they're doing. They're not, yeah, you disagree with everything. I probably would too, but they believe it. But right now we're a little closer. Right, we're a little closer. And Rita Peters, the VP for Convention of States Action, she had a good point, and she was like, take this day as a motivator. Take this day as something that you go out. If you were a part of grassroots and you didn't take any action before, take some action. That comment is actually what motivated me to go live for the first time in God knows how long, knowing that I'm not going to have a huge audience for the initial live event, but because no one knows that I'm doing this. But like at the same time, Facebook and whatnot are not exactly pumping me out. Despite 18,000 followers, they might send the live alert to like 20. Like it's just how they roll. But anyway, that was my main point. I just wanted to let you guys know state number 20 is in the books. We're that much closer to a convention of states, and the year has just begun. South Dakota, I believe it is tomorrow. Let's get the next step done there, and let's make this happen. And the grassroots, keep doing the good work, keep going out there. I know that there are people who are showing up. And I watch them. Here I am in Southern California, the People's Republic of California, and it's not exactly the most hopeful place. But even in places like New York, we got great people in New York fighting. They're fighting. Massachusetts, they're fighting. They're trying to get it done. Massachusetts at one point got it past committee and got it onto the floor. Like in a place like Massachusetts, that's a big deal, right? It's a big deal to get a left-leaning state to see that these are, that because a lot of these folks are conservatives. So they automatically think, well, this must be a conservative, it's a conservative thing, but it's not. And if they just sit back and look at it, they'll see that it's not. They'll see that it's not, because, it's just one of those things where if you just stop and look at the issues and look at the term limits, right? We all agree. We all agree with term limits. We all agree with fiscal restraints, and we all agree with government overreach. So kudos to the Kansas grassroots. I'm stoked that they were able to do what they did. I think, look, I think the fact of the matter is, when it comes to the grassroots, these guys. I mean, for those that were in it from the beginning, I'm only in this for 5 years. right? And in the beginning, I wasn't doing anything because my attitude was like, well, I'm in California. What's going to happen in California? Like, I try to reach out to my local legislators here. I get it. Some places it's frustrating when they hear, convention of states. These people are do-to-dos. It's all fixed out here. I get that. But like, not every state is tanked like New York and California, and there are certainly 34 that we can get this done in. So what did I do? I just decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to start a podcast, and I did that for a few years. And I still post on Convention of States. I still produce shorts and things like that, just to kind of keep people engaged, or teach them how to go about it, right? But like, and that's what it's about. It's about doing something. If you don't have time, maybe you could donate some money. If you don't have money, maybe you could donate some time. If you don't have either, maybe you could just be a social media warrior, right? And go onto social media and help that way. Like there's a lot of different ways that someone can contribute that don't require, like, if that would be, and frankly, you don't even have to go that nuts with it, because in the end, you're online anyway. Let's face it. If you even stumbled across this video, it means you go on social media. And if you go on social media, just throw some comments out there. There are opportunities to talk about this all day long. And we just got to know, we just got to know what those opportunities are, and see them and comment on them, and et cetera. Excuse me if I'm looking away. I'm producing and speaking and and the whole nine. So if you're watching this later on and you think, why does this guy keep looking over to his left and whatnot? Like, the reason for that is that I'm trying to make some moves here on the production side and still keep the conversation flowing. So, but as I expected, there's not a huge amount of people. I don't see comments coming through anyway. I don't know how many people. I don't see comments coming through. So without the comments, I'm going to go ahead and leave it as just having let out that message. But again, major shout out to, here we go. Major shout out to, the grassroots in Kansas, grassroots everywhere, really. Good luck to the folks in South Dakota who are heading in tomorrow. Awesome that you have Kansas now to throw on the docket as far as your talk track. And, look, let's hope the best comes from this, and we go from there. So great start to the year. Let's hope you guys see me a lot this year, with one state after the other coming on board. Until then, I'm out.